This is Trend Following Radio, where great thinking comes alive. Nobel Prize winners, legendary traders, best-selling authors, and the pros that know what drive us irrational human beings. I am your host, Michael Covel. Not filtered, raw, honest. That's my passion. What a great quote that I'm about to read from the physicist Richard Feynman. No longer with us, but brilliance that never ends. Quoting, "Have no respect whatsoever for authority. Forget who said it, and instead look what he starts with, where he ends up, and ask yourself, is it reasonable?" End quote. That is just flat out brilliant. Have no respect whatsoever for authority. Forget who said it, and instead look what he starts with, where he ends up, and ask yourself, is it reasonable? Now, imagine modern life right now with all the social media jokesters, the social media talking heads, the cable TV talking heads. Is it reasonable? Is it reasonable? Now, I'm not asking what fucking team you're on. I don't care what team you're on. I've got enough of that nonsense. Is it reasonable? That's what really drives my thinking. Because I don't care. I really don't care about the partisan nonsense. What I want to figure out across my lifetime, across this podcast, I want to look at human behavior. I want to look at trading. I want to look at decision making. I want to look at markets, the psychology that surrounds it all. That is terribly fascinating. Why does one person have success versus another? How does skill and luck come into play? Oh, you mean because that guy has $1 billion, that must mean he is skillful? Not necessarily. And you're saying just because that guy's poor, he might just be unlucky? Maybe. These are all the issues that fascinate me. However, one quick detour before I go any further, since I brought up Richard Feynman. I want you to go check out a YouTube video of his. It's called Richard Feynman Computer Heuristics Lecture. It might be on YouTube under many different postings, but look for those terms, you'll find it. It's about an hour and 15 minutes. Absolutely fabulous. Now back away from that side detour to the big question laid out by Richard Feynman. Is it reasonable? Is it reasonable? Now, what's so tough about that in this day and age is that people don't have the ability to even get there. Because for most people, facts no longer matter. Facts are not important. That's absolutely true. Now, it's not true, by and large, for the highest achievers. They get how the game is played, and they understand that counting is very important in our current human life. Counting actually is very valuable. But most people don't like to count, so to speak. They don't want to know the knowledge. Perhaps they're not even capable of knowing the knowledge. They're not even capable of knowing the facts. To make my point, I want to quote some from an article that appeared on Boston.com years back, perhaps 9 years back, 10 years back. This was forwarded to me by a reader, a guy named Steve. And there are some absolutely great thoughts in here that buttress my point today about facts not mattering. In fact, the title of the article, How Facts Backfire. Now, it's primarily about politics, but it's applicable to anything. So I'm going to try and keep the political part out because I just don't give a shit. But you'll see these core passages that I want to quote right now so spot on in making the point that even if it's reasonable, most people might not be able to get there. Quoting, "It's an article of faith that knowledge is the best remedy. If people are furnished with the facts, they will be clearer thinkers and better citizens. If they are ignorant, facts will enlighten them. If they are mistaken, facts will set them straight. In the end, truth will win out, won't it? Maybe not." Researchers at the University of Michigan have found that when misinformed people, particularly political partisans, were exposed to corrected facts in news stories, they rarely changed their minds. In fact, they often became even more strongly set in their beliefs. Facts, they found, were not curing misinformation. Like an underpowered antibiotic, facts could actually make misinformation even stronger. This bodes ill for our democracies across the world. I guess it bodes ill for just about anything, because most people aren't blank slates. They already have beliefs and a set of facts lodged in their minds. The problem is that sometimes the things they think they know, what they think are objective facts, can be proven false. And in the presence of the correct information, such people react very, very differently than the merely uninformed. Instead of changing their minds to reflect the current information, they can entrench themselves even deeper. The general idea is that it's absolutely threatening to admit you're wrong. The phenomena known as backfire is a natural defense mechanism to avoid cognitive dissonance. Worst of all, this can lead us to uncritically accept bad information just because it reinforces our beliefs. This reinforcement makes us more confident we're right and even less likely to listen to any new information. This effect is only heightened by the information glut, which offers alongside an unprecedented amount of good information, endless rumors, misinformation, and questionable variations on the truth. In other words, it's never been easier for people to be wrong and at the same time feel more certain that they're right. Doesn't that sum up every last aspect of opinion today? Now back to what Feynman said at the top. Is it reasonable? Is what I'm saying today reasonable? I think we all know it's reasonable immediately. What kind of world are we in when facts don't matter? Well, we're living it. We're absolutely living it. We're square in the middle of it. How do you make decisions when facts don't matter? How do you make decisions when fundamentals don't matter? How do you make decisions when fundamentals are not real? What do you do when a guy like me tells you that the fundamentals are not real and you really believe in the fundamentals? Now, you can't show me any way that the fundamentals connect to XYZ price. There's no way you can do that, but you believe it. You don't have to prove it. And if you hear me say you have to prove it, show me your cards, and you can't, cognitive dissonance hits, and guess what? You entrench. You dig in deeper. And you don't even get to the point where I'm trying to go today, which is we just can't know. We can't know what's real. We can't know who's spinning. We don't know if the person talking has an agenda or is being honest. And we don't even know what the hell the facts are. Now, as another quick side tangent, this really isn't an episode about trend following trading. But when you think about something like trend following trading, where the variable that you're making your decisions on, the price, is concrete. It can't be faked. It's real every damn day. All the analysis, all the opinions, all the fundamentals, that stuff can be cooked, faked, and baked till the cows come home. But the price, regardless of all the other ways that you got to the price, we don't have to know why that price exists. We just have to know the damn price. Let me get out of that side tangent. Back to the article. I want to quote a little bit more. What's going on? How can we have things so wrong and be so sure that we're right? part of the answer lies in the way our brains are wired. Generally, people tend to seek consistency. There is a substantial body of psychological research showing that people tend to interpret information with an eye toward reinforcing their pre-existing views. If we believe something about the world, we are more likely to passively accept as truth any information that confirms our beliefs and actively dismiss information that doesn't. This is known as motivated reasoning. Whether or not the consistent information is accurate, we might accept it as fact, as confirmation of our beliefs. This makes us more confident in said beliefs and even less likely to entertain facts that contradict them. This is kind of like how somebody can be in a market, whatever that market might be, and they're in at price level 100, and it drops 90%, and they're still long. So literally, they can look at the information, they can say, well, my stock went from price level 100 to price level 10. Now, we all know that's an objective fact, but that poor person is looking at it saying something else. Something else is going on in their field of vision. Something else is obscuring their understanding. They just can't see the bloody truth staring at them in the mirror, completely blinded. Now, the article does go on to have a solution, which I've actually thought about myself some recently. The recommendation is a supply side approach. Instead of focusing on the citizens and consumers of misinformation, the suggestion is to look at the sources. If you increase the reputational costs of peddling bad information, you might discourage people from doing it so often. So if you go on to, quote, Meet the Press, a cable news show, and you get hammered for saying something misleading, you'd think twice before you go and do it again. I believe that's 100% true. And I've actually wondered from an opportunity standpoint why somebody has not created a platform that just nails talking heads. You know, because sometimes you see these articles, and I'm not reading this stuff all day by any stretch of the imagination, just a random comes across my field of vision. But I'll see some crazy headline or some wild prediction, and I always note the author. Like, who the fuck is the author? You know, some twit that no one knows. And then you click on the link, there's no bio, there's no nothing. The person has zero resume. Then you have to go do a Google search, and you might find a LinkedIn page. And I'm telling you, 9 times out of 10, it's a recently graduated journalism student. Like somebody with no experience. That's one type of voice to be exposed. What's the voice being exposed? Big companies just creating clickbait to make money off advertising. But the larger fish to go after are the big voices that we all know. Why can't there be a place where those big voices have to, from a Richard Feynman standpoint, produce facts? Now, of course, they're not going to come on and produce facts. What I mean is, from an investigative journalism standpoint, go after the source, go after the supply side, expose those types of voices. I'm actually still surprised that from an opportunity standpoint, somebody has not created that. Because every time I see a talking head say something which is patently absurd, ridiculous, nonsensical, or just made up out of thin air, or they're spinning something that's just plain ordinary into something that's nefarious, I just want to expose. Not that the information they're saying is necessarily wrong. I want to expose the person saying it. I want to go after the supply side. Now, we might be a long way from that because all these voices seem to be protected. They all help to create the ad dollars from everyone clicking and arguing and debating and all that other nonsense. But what I like to do here is to simply raise an issue, to raise a thought, to get you thinking about a different way. So instead of having the endless fact debates with our friends, family, associates. Let's go nail the supply side of all these voices, all this misinformation. I have one final, I don't know if I want to call it a theory, but one final hypothesis about why this is really happening at an accelerated pace right now in 2019. I mean, it's been happening for years, and we're just starting 2019, so I'm not making any big prognostication that something is happening in the first couple of weeks that we should be looking to. That's not my point. But in 2019, I think there's something that allows this to really fester, kind of like a boil building up. There's a reason why all these voices are protected. Asset prices. Asset prices give the stupid cover. So if stocks are through the roof, if real estate is through the roof, then whatever that person who owns those assets says, they have cover. They're protected. They look smart. So some person makes $1 billion in crypto, then comes out and has some extremely detailed social policy position. There's no connective tissue between the two, but the asset prices, the height of assets, not only makes the people that we observe from afar look like, well, they must really know what they're doing. We do it ourselves. We take our own wealth and we don't run it through the Richard Feynman filters. And by the way, you can go find a Richard Feynman Twitter handle. I'm not sure what it is. Somebody putting some of his great quotes up every day. But that's what we should be running through every day. We should not be letting our wealth, our money, say to us, you're right. No, that's not the filter. That's not the process. Back to reasonable. Is it reasonable? And of course, as I've outlined in this monologue today, reasonable can be very difficult if people can't even agree to the facts. So my hope is not that on any spectrum of any population that 30 or 40% on either pole will be swayed. It's getting the people in the middle to think more like Feynman. Getting the people in the middle to think more about being reasonable. Getting people to think more about the fact that your decision-making should not be made based on the value of your asset prices in stocks and real estate, especially if that value is simply from the strategy of long only. Because if you're only long, and hey, I'm not criticizing here, it doesn't necessarily make a difference if you get a little lucky. There's nothing wrong with that. But it's being aware that it's not going to always be that way. So if you keep that Richard Feynman skepticism, keep it in your holster. At any point in time, you're ready to say to yourself, to say to your friends, to your family, to your associates, where are you starting from? Where are you ending? And is it reasonable? And if we can apply that kind of mindset to our decision making over everything, we're going to be a hell of a lot better off. I see a time when those awake will understand how to make money in up, down, and surprise markets. Whether new trader or experienced, college student or financial advisor, protecting against a crash or just trying to make a lot of money, trend following offers everyone an answer in uncertain times. To get started immediately, send me an email, michael@covel.com. I will send you the right trend following steps to take along with my free video. But if you want to buy and hold, trust the government and trust Wall Street, this is absolutely not for you.